farmers who sleep half.
I've read a recent report which says Indians are sleeping less than 6 hours.
Sometimes the job demands that you probably have to sacrifice sleep, but definitely that's something which you cannot do on a daily basis.
I open Twitter and people say AI is bad, AI is good. So, where do you think AI is heading towards?
You can only master AI by using it more and more, right? At the same time, for students, for example, we have a submission to make, and let's put it into ChatGPT. Whatever is coming out, let's give that a submission. No, that's not the way it is to be done.
Are people slowly losing their creativity? Because AI is taking over and you get fast responses.
The role of human beings today is moving from being an actor to the director. There's a huge potential of AI in healthcare.
Greetings to everyone watching. I, Emmanuel Simon, a PGDM student and POC of Prarambh, the Entrepreneurship cell of IMT Hyderabad, warmly welcome you for our conversation today and our podcast today. It's a delight, it's so much of delight and with gratitude that we welcome you here. Today we are honored to have Mr. Shiladitya Mallik with us. He is the co-founder and the chief business officer of SmartWinnr. So SmartWinnr is an entrepreneurship grade platform that uses AI and gamification to train employees and help organizations to scale up their sales performance. Sir, we are honored to have you here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel.
So, sir, before we begin this podcast, you obviously have such a long experience in corporates, and you also are a co-founder, and you've held multiple leadership positions. Obviously, leadership comes with certain pressure and commitments. So, how do you deal with pressure, and how do you stay grounded? Because a lot of focus in B schools right now is towards being an ethical leader and being a responsible leader. So if you could give some insights about it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think leaders are someone who have to kind of lead by example, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, there will be pressure situations, so we have to take the pressure, but we need to also take care of our health and well-being. And that's something which is being done a lot. And also maybe what I feel is not doing so much of comparison with others and just focusing on, am I the better self compared to me yesterday? So that kind of, helps you to be grounded, but at the same time, be on a journey of self-development as well.
Sir, you were, one thing I want to point out is you were saying, look after yourself and being well. I've read a recent report which says Indians are sleeping less than 6 hours. So I'm just curious to know, do you sleep 6 hours with all that's happening with you, maintaining a global leadership, and how important it is for you to have some good rest as well?
It is very important. However, sometimes the job demands that you probably have to sacrifice sleep, but definitely that's something which you cannot do on a daily basis, right? So we have to definitely put health first, because if we are not healthy ourselves, we cannot give the best to our organization.
Sure. Also, I would like to expand this question a bit. How do you motivate your team as well? The situation is dynamically changing. To what's today relevant is not relevant tomorrow, and you are managing global operations, I assume, with SmartWinnr. How do you motivate your team as well in place of Hyderabad and also global operations?
See, what I feel is that we are here to do a job, but also there is a larger mission. And if we can reiterate within our team members that, this is what the mission is, this is what we want to do. We work a lot with regulated industry, which means we have owners to do the best for our customers. So that kind of is important. So kind of reinforcing the mission of the company and making people feel that you're not just a cog in the wheel, but whatever you do, it makes a difference for the organization, but also for the customers. That's a very important part. So that's how I try to look at motivating and leading the team.
That's a very interesting thing, sir. And as I read about SmartWinnr, it says obviously it's a training tool for organizations. So as you said, to help motivate does that translate towards your platform as well, where people from different organizations are using it to scale up their sales performance, and also you're using AI extensively, as you said, to motivate. Does that transform into your platform's learning through gamification as well?
Yeah, for sure. The fundamentals of SmartWinnr is that if you have a sales team, how can you train them, coach them, motivate them, and drive their performance, right? So and we do it in different ways within the system, but that's the core philosophy of kind of driving performance, which is data driven, which helps people with the right set of visibility. And I think you brought about AI also. We have this whole feature of AI role play, where the sales team members can practice having a conversation just the way we are having this conversation ahead of time. And as we know, practice makes perfect. So by the time they are actually having the conversation with their customers, they are having the right way and the right approach and the right confidence to have those conversations.
That's amazing, sir. You're not just putting it into practice in your organization only, but you're transforming it and scaling it to people who are learning through your platform. That's something true. So given your extensive exposure to AI, you're using AI in your own company, and you've been to Silicon Valley is what I've heard, and you are at the forefront of looking at what's really happening in AI. Students like us, it's very easy to be misinformed. I open Twitter and people say AI is good, bad, AI is good. So where do you think AI is heading towards, and what are the major disruptions or good things that can happen through it?
See, AI is definitely a transformative technology, and after internet, I believe this is the next transformative technology. That's true. And whenever transformation happens, it doesn't happen at one go. So it happens in bits and pieces. And obviously, different organizations, different individuals, they have different rates of learning when things change. One thing is very, very clear. We cannot sit by the sidelines. And what I would definitely request that AI, you can only master AI by using it more and more, right? At the same time, human beings play a very important role. We cannot delegate everything to the AI. We need to find out certain problem areas where we can use AI and learn from that and make this as our co-worker or co-pilot, right? So, but there has to be a deliberate attempt. It's not just, sometimes we want to take this easy way of that. I have a problem, let me put it into ChatGPT. For students, for example, we have a submission to make and let's put it into ChatGPT. Whatever is coming out, let's, give that a submission. No, that's not the way it is to be done. We have to use AI where, we are kind of asking ChatGPT the different options what we have. We have to use our kind of learning which is the right option and co-create together with AI rather than just doing a copy paste.
True. Also, something that you brought up is not just giving prompt and taking it. Are we losing as human beings and as people, especially youngsters like us, who've been open to use AI since a young age, for especially Gen Alpha, Gen Zs? Are people slowly losing their creativity because AI is taking over and you get fast responses? Even something that has surprised me was Nano Banana Gemini that came up with generative images, and the creative space is also being hindered by AI. So losing creativity can be a boom or a doom for future of humanity. Can we say that?
See, if you look at when camera came out or when Photoshop came out, we thought that human ingenuity is not needed. You can definitely, if you look at a lot of blogs today, you will see images which are generated by AI, right? Yeah. And those are sloppy images. Yeah. And then there are certain images which are great because there's a human being who is actually interacting with Nano Banana, giving them multitude of prompts, refining it. So if you think about it, the role of human beings today is moving from being an actor to the director. We have to think about we are a director. And to be honest, it's much more difficult to be a director than an actor, right? Because you need to know the whole cast, right? You need to know what your goals are. So those are important things. So one more thing I think we were discussing earlier, which is from a skill perspective, all this while we have been thinking about how to solve the problem. Now today AI can solve the problem, but where the skill comes is what is the question to be asked, right? So we have to focus on the problem domain rather than a solution domain. And I think sometimes it's more difficult. You need to have really a good understanding of the problem domain to give the right prompt or ask the right question to the AI.
As we were talking about AI, but the numbers say otherwise. If you look at the economics of AI, let's say OpenAI has not been profitable since since its launch, and it's burning a lot of cash. The cash rate has been crazy. Also, the circular economy that people are talking, like all four big major companies that are investing on each other. Also, for the benefit of the users, those who don't know, Microsoft is investing in OpenAI, but it's only cloud credits. It's not tangible money. So how do you see this economy? People say it's a AI bubble and it can burst anytime. That can cause global recession. So how do you view it as a frontline expert?
See, AI is not a bubble. This is something which is giving real tangible benefits on so many fronts that we are reading. In terms of the, let's talk about, cost, right? So OpenAI is actually profitable on inference basis. They are not profitable when we talk about training the new generation of model, right? So what they are doing is that if they stopped investing on that, and if they just had the latest version, they are profitable on an inference basis. The other thing, if you have seen that, from a GPT 3.5 era where it was like, $20 for a million token, it's now 7 cents for a million token for the same model. But what has happened is that we are not using the same model. We are now, 10 generation ahead, right? So now we are using more token to kind of, drive the intelligence per se. So I believe, and another thing is that all these companies understand that this is a huge opportunity. They cannot be on the, sitting as a bystander. So they are investing as much as they can to get the, most out of it. Yes, there will be some short-term kind of, frothing and some short-term concerns, very similar to what we saw during the .com, boom and, bust, if I may say, in the early 2000. But this is not something which is, which is going to go away. It's going to impact us, and there's going to be real economic value to be made. So from that perspective, I'm not really worried about this being a circular economy.
So you were saying that there is economic value. I came across a paper saying the ghost economy, where AGI is going to come, and commoners and common people will not have good like say entry level jobs, or jobs are going to be displaced. So how will consumers gather money, or how will the economy run when the basic bystanders would not be having any source of income? Would that wealth be distributed only to the top 1%, let's say, or 2%, or how would the economy look like, if you could think of it? And
see, that's a great question. First thing is that jobs have always been displaced when there has been technological shift, right? So when we move from say horse-driven carriage to motor car era, or when digitization or computerization started first, and before that we had all clerical jobs which was being done. But what we have seen is that as and when technology shifts, jobs shift. So it's not that we are not going to do anything. The nature of the job, that's going to shift. And just to again, the analogy what we talked about, we will have the AI agents as the actors. You still need the director, right? True. I think we will be more productive as as a overall economy. So that's definitely going to happen. The risk is, yes, for people who don't want to change, who don't want to embrace, and who when a new technology comes, and this is a really disruptive technology, so we really need to be changing ourselves and kind of make us prepared for that new reality.
True. Also, talking about AI, there is fact that the data centers that are being set up, they are using a lot of electricity, a lot of water that is scarce, that is not unlimited. So how do you think that is going to affect the planet and sustainability? As per se, every company is talking about sustainability now, but the huge amount of electric consumption and water consumption. What do you think of data centers as a whole?
See, this is a concern, definitely. One of the things which has happened is that people couldn't predict that there will be a huge demand for AI. There will be a huge demand for data center and energy related to AI, and hence those demands were not built up, right? So the infrastructure or the energy infrastructure to meet that demands, those were not built up. However, now we see that I think in US first time they kind of commissioned a nuclear reactor after so many years. Yeah. So people now know that number one, AI is going to stay. It is energy hungry. How can we use renewable resources to kind of manage that energy demand? So the current situation, what we see, rising energy cost, rising pollution and things like that, this is definitely a temporary phase, because people didn't know that like we are going to kind of create millions of tokens or billions of tokens or trillions of tokens for that matter in the such a short period of time. But I think we will go there in 5 to 7 years. So and if you see, AI is actually bringing back the concept of more of nuclear power, because conventional power might not be able to kind of meet that demand in a clean way. So that way it's even better for the earth as a whole.
So as continuing on this topic, India in the recent budget, they gave a tax holiday for data center setup until 2047 to foster growth and to go towards the vision of tech-driven economy by 2047. Also, data centers don't need a lot of manpower, and especially in a country like India where unemployment is high, do you think it is a good strategy, because data centers are not going to impact unemployment as much, and it will use natural resources as well?
See, we have to think it from a different way. So there's a huge potential of AI in healthcare, right? In India, there's a huge population. Now, a lot of them are underserved and they can be better served through AI, right? Now, if you think from that respect and you talk about data center investment, that makes a lot of sense. So the Indian investment on data center is based on what our needs gonna be, right? So let's not look at the data center as, I would say, job creation engine, right? They are just the fundamental building blocks like electricity, right? So you don't get a lot of job created through electricity substations, for example, but that's not the role. The job creation happens from the mills, from the factories, from the offices, which uses the electricity. So you have to think from that perspective.
Yeah. Also, we were discussing in the other room about entrepreneurship. You've been the co-founder of many things, and you also had that entrepreneurship spirit. You worked at T-Hub as well. Do you think India is driving and investing very well to take this entrepreneurship into a next level based on what's coming with the AI, and we are well equipped with AI, or do we need to take further steps regarding this?
See, if you look at the AI, there is this application layer of AI, and then there is this foundation layer of AI. I think for the foundation layer of AI, we are not doing enough, right? We ideally should be doing enough. Now, question is that do we need, or do we need to invest so much on the foundation layer, or should we build on the application layer? If you look at the IT revolution which happened, and India was a big beneficiary for that, the entire value was at the application level, not who were creating servers, right? So it was the TCS and Wipros of the world who kind of took the benefit from the application layer. So I think something similar might be played out, where we are focusing on the application layer, which is very kind of aligned with our traditional strength. I would definitely like to have something on the foundational layer as well, that will kind of make us sovereign from that perspective, because these are very kind of technology which has got impact on national security as well. So but definitely we should focus on the application layer first, which is our strength traditionally.
So what do you think, what steps should be taken as an entrepreneur as well as an investor to foster application layer growth in our country or in the city to make an impact out of it?
I think, India is full of entrepreneurs with great ideas,
Yeah.
and we can see there are so many applications the entrepreneurs are thinking about that you don't need to have a policy per se. We are seeing entrepreneurs are coming up solution on the healthcare space. They are having solutions on the agricultural space, drone based monitoring, and using that. So I mean, there are a lot of India centric innovations which is happening, but I think it will happen more and more as and when the different aspects of AI get more and more diffused.
That's very thought provoking. In our business consulting class, this our professor said that we are moving away from the traditional three P's and going towards people, purpose, and planet. So we've talked about purpose and planet. So let's move on to people. So you've graduated from Indian School of Business, and you later on had two different. You worked with them as associate director as well, and you know the education sector. So, do you think the education sector is doing enough with the AI disruption, and also they are preparing young leaders well, or do you think there's something to do more to it to equip leaders to go into this volatile workforce or corporate?
I think we are not doing enough in the sense that the change which AI has brought has been very, very sudden, and I don't see that change getting reflected in the way, number one, teaching is done at B schools, number one, and number two, what we expect out of the leaders coming out of the B schools. But that's changing. All the top B schools, they are kind of adding AI in the curriculum.
Yeah.
We can see a lot of professors who are saying that you can use ChatGPT, we don't mind, right? But it will be evaluated on your merit, right? So how much can you get the best out of ChatGPT? Maybe that's the skill, right? So and that's the skill which people need to learn. In short, we are seeing people, or B schools are incorporating them, but they are in the process of doing it. We are still not over with the process.
Yes. Also, talking about AGI, AGI poses it's pitched in as something incredible by Sam Altman or Elon Musk, but it also poses a risk for freshers, especially you don't have any experience, because it can automate like cloud, copilot, and everything. So, how do you look at AGI, and what do you think AGI is going to do next, and what is the time period by which we can expect AGI to come into the fold?
See, the definition of AGI keeps on changing. Whatever we have today, right? If in 2020 someone would have shown that, it would be talked about as AGI. So in that way, if you see Claude co-work with different skills, so it's kind of a general intelligence, right? The only thing is that you need to have a certain set of skills which are there. So from a practical perspective, that can they solve general problems? Yes, they can solve general problems. So I think to some extent, because AGI, we are always making it like moving target, right? So first when it passed Turing test, we said no, that's not good enough. We need to do that. So but I think for a practical perspective, from a common layman's term, it's already there, right?
Yeah.
Now what can students do about it is that student needs to know how to harness the power of AGI, right? Because AGI is not going to do everything on its own. There has to be a direction given, right?
Sure.
Now, for example, you can use Claude co-work to create a PowerPoint, right? What that PowerPoint is going to be, what is that messaging, what modification you want to do. So it can act as a force multiplier. You can think about, you probably have seen in those movies exoskeleton, right? So we can move very fast using exoskeleton. That doesn't obviate the need of the human, right? You still need a human who will tell where we need to go, right? That is still there.
So moving forward, do you think what is the one AI skill that students need to be equipped with entering the workforce right now? Because you interact with students, you also hire people, and how the corporate world is changing. So what could you leave us with that one AI skill that every student needs to have mandatorily?
See, the critical skill today is framing the problem. Because if you frame the problem correctly, AI is great at solutioning. Okay, so we need to understand how to frame the problem, and for us to know how to frame the problem, unfortunately you still need to know about solutioning, right? If you don't know anything about solutioning, it's garbage in, garbage out. So I think some of the traditional concept, okay, we talk about vibe coding, someone doesn't know anything about JavaScript, HTML, and they create something. So that's one level. But if you really want to create something production grade, you need to know that. You need to know what the AI is creating, and to critique it, and to guide it, and to drive it in the right place, right? So the only difference I'm saying is that rather than focusing so much on the solutioning space, now we have to focus on the problem space, so that we can give the problem in the right way. And to me, it's actually a higher order skill, and which means that training needs to be done, learning needs to be done. So there's no getting away. You cannot have someone who says that, what, now AI is there, I'm not going to do anything, and I'm going to get benefited out of it. That is not going to happen.
Yeah, that is. I was also thinking on the same lines. Do students learn to wipe code or prompt engineering? But again, as you reinforce, that student needs to know the in and out of the services that he wants to deliver. That is what is gonna set us apart from the rest of the crowd, is what I think.
Yep.
that will gonna leave us.
Yeah.
So last few questions for you, sir. Obviously you've interacted with our students and you've been around on the campus. How do you think IMT Hyderabad is placed?
It's a wonderful campus, very interesting bunch of students. I had this lovely session. There were so many interesting questions and energy. So I'm really impressed, to be honest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. And it's an honor to have Mr. Mallik also with us for his insights and he shared his journey with us. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks. My pleasure. Thanks, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much.
Okay.